Please join me in welcoming to the podium founder and executive director of Empower K-12, Josh Boots.
Good morning, everyone. Overwhelmed by being here. Sorry. Well, welcome to the 2024 DC Math Summit. This is, where's the clicker on this thing? This? And I just press it? Boom. So you've heard the words DC Math Hub, and you were probably like, what is that? I just about heard about it. Also, as Pat said, this is rapidly evolving new initiative, as new as October. So this is just an idea that's generated, and it has evolved. The DCPS chancellor, the charter sector, the deputy mayor's office, OSSE, the chancellor, State Superintendent Christina Grant will be facilitating a research panel. People are talking about math and coming together to collaborate around math. And it is rapidly evolving, right? So on March 14th, on Pi Day, we released the Bright Spots report. Many of those Bright Spot educators and school leaders are in this room today. We will be honoring you here after this first panel. And we are here today at the Math Summit. And then where do we go from here? We actually don't have a set agenda. We want, as Pat said, to elevate your voice. We want to eventually have like a leadership panel of teachers and school leaders and instructional leaders to tell us what should we be doing next. And so what can it be? These are just ideas. And we know that you have ideas as well. And so these are just ideas. It is evolving. We will figure it out better together. Again, like rapidly evolving project, but lots of people even contributed to that report. And I'm just gonna let this sit on here for a second because I'm so thankful for all these people who contributed to that report, contributed research, contributed knowledge, contributed wisdom. I know some of the educators in this room talked to me, thank you. I know that we also weren't able to talk to all of our bright spots this time. We will do that in the future. We will prioritize who we didn't talk to this time for next time. So I'm gonna ground us a little bit on the data, because data nerd. Let's start with DC math scores were trailing the international average, and were actually declining before the pandemic. This isn't just a DC problem, this is a national problem. Even on the NAEP, or the nation's report card, right? We saw for a long time, basically scores were in 2012, hit a high at 285, but dropped to 280 in 2020, and then dropped to 271 post-pandemic. Our own results. We did see progress pre-pandemic. Our students were making progress. Our low-income students were gaining on their national peers. We saw that the amount of gap was declining almost every year. On our state assessment, we see that pre-pandemic and incremental progress every year. That's the hard work of everyone in this room. We went from 22% proficient in 2014-15 to 31% proficient in 2018-19. We did have the pandemic, but even last year, improvement, even with all the chronic absenteeism, with all the challenges you were dealing with, improvement in math. For both students designated as at risk, students with disabilities, every student group improved in math. Thank you. But what does this mean? That recovery rate still means that we're still 3 to 6 years away from even getting back to 2019 levels of proficiency. So we need to be doing something different. We need to double down on what works, and we need to figure out how we can work better together. One of the challenges we see even in our own data pre-pandemic is that the rate of proficiency declined by grade level. Our highest performing students were in 3rd grade, and each year after that, they decline in proficiency going into high school. And we see that orange set of bars is the difference between 2019 rates and 2023 rates. We also know that the kids who were the youngest when the pandemic hit were the hardest hit, right? They're the ones furthest behind where they were before. We also know that we've had some chronic absenteeism challenges, and we do know that chronic absenteeism has an impact on student learning. This is profound to me. This is one of the most profound charts I've ever seen. That we see that students who have profound chronic absenteeism, who miss more than 30% of the school year, only 18% of them are scoring on or above grade level in math or reading. But those kids who attend 95% of the time or more, 53%. chronic absenteeism matters, right? Getting students in school matters. All that hard work that you do about school environment, making them feel like they want to belong in school, that's important work so that we can teach them math. As part of our study, we also did we also surveyed parents from across the city, and we asked them about math. We asked them actually about a lot of things, including all the subject areas, but they actually ranked math as the most important subject that their kids take. And 66% of them would like their child to receive additional tutoring in math at school, right? They know that their children are struggling in math. They need additional supports. They need a better strategy. But they also don't know how much of a problem it is. Only 30% of parents were able to identify the range of student proficiency in math, 60% overestimated by more than 20% the percent of students proficient in math. This is new, and this is, I'm gonna let a secret out of the bag in this room today. This was not in our report. You can feel free to tweet about it, but I wanna talk about pre-pandemic. We did a lot of research on unfinished learning and learning loss, looking at MAP and iReady data that kids starting in kindergarten take in our schools. DC Public Schools, the DC Public Charter Schools lend us that data to do some research. And so what I'm about to show you is a cohort of 9,300 students who have been taking those assessments since 1819, right? So they've been around for 5 years. They've been taking MAP and iReady for 5 years. So we're really talking about 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders right now. So that orange line is the pre-pandemic national trend. This is the trend that students should have followed if they had, on average, if they had kept. And so our students that were part of this sample were basically at the national average pre-pandemic, that light blue line. And then we see, because of the pandemic, that blue line starts lower. Below that is, how much is that like in a gap in terms of instructional months? So like, how far behind are kids? And so what we see is that like in that virtual year during that winter, they had already dropped about 5 to 6 instructional months of learning in math. And then by the winter after that, it was up to 10 and a half. And we knew that coming back was going to be a struggle. We've struggled with chronic absenteeism, and that number bottomed out at 11 and a half months behind the pre-pandemic average. But like I said, for the first time over the last 12 months, particularly this past spring and this past fall, we have recovered 0.6 of a month. It's the right direction for the first time, and we are finally starting to see scores accelerate, not just get back to the average trend, accelerate. We're recovering that time, not just losing that time, we're recovering that time. So again, congratulations to those people in the room. And I think everyone in this room deserves a round of applause for that accomplishment, because it was hard work. And that's with the latest winter results as of this year. So in the last year, from winter of last year to winter of this year, our students have recovered on average 1 month of learning loss from the pandemic for the first time. And so that's the hard work that you've done. That's what I wanted to be able to share with you. There was an animation there. But that's new data. We will be publishing this report soon, but that's showing you that like what you're doing is working. The bright spots in this room, what you're doing is working. We just need to spread that. And I do believe that DC can be the distinction, and that our low-income students, our students of color, can outscore the national average on the NAEP assessment, be the first jurisdiction in the history of this country to do so by 2030, maybe even before then. And so that's what motivates me in this work. That's what motivates me to work with you all. For all the bright spots who communicate and share your secret sauce with me and secret sauce with the rest of us, thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Josephine Bias Robinson.